average taxpayers in Michigan know this?
They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue.
Do you think they would believe something like this could happen to you or to them or anybody?
They don't believe it. People don't believe it. The system, even with my ex-wife, sure, I have a grudge. I have very bad feelings there. Even though it was perpetrated by her, it was supported by the courts to get this money, and that's all it was about. If they would have made this right and did justice, they would have labeled the father as the father. They would have never collected a dime because he would have had custody of his children. There would have been no court order for child support, which would have alleviated all the money they would have collected. A good portion of the time that I was paying child support, because they were on welfare, the state of Michigan got the payments I was making to begin with. It didn't even go to the parents.
State.
It came to the state.
Do you think most people have a clue about that?
They don't have a clue about that. People have no idea, and when the way the courts have the system designed and the facade of best interest of the child built into people's minds, people think that it's really for the best interest of the child. They've got the sexes fighting back and forth, and that's where I was going with this. Even though I have a grudge with my ex-wife, my major problem is with the system. The system is designed to separate families. It's designed to destroy communication even between ex-wife and fathers. I mean, they don't want that communication bridge there. They want to destroy that so there is no communication to keep that money coming in. They don't want reconciliation in families.
Mr. Richardson, you've been through a terrible ordeal, it looks like, for more than 20 years. You could not get justice. Should we just abolish CPS, abolish child collection services? Should we abolish this whole thing and end the federal VAWA funding, end the Title IV funding, just abolish it all because it's so corrupt? That's my last question to you.
Yes, I certainly believe the only way to bring the family courts back to justice is to eliminate federal funding. I believe when the design of federal funding was initiated, it was misportrayed to save taxpayers money, and the family courts have found a way to turn it into a money tree and abuse it. The biggest thing that I do want to make a note of, and it's probably stepping back a little bit, the best interest of the child is such a facade. Children, we're not only losing families, we're losing children's lives, and something I never touch base on that proves that best interest of the child really is non-existent is stepping back to 2001 when this child was left with the biological father. I found a police report from 1997 that this man was convicted of felony firearms and assault with a deadly weapon for holding this child, the mother, and two of her girlfriends hostage in his house at gunpoint, threatening to kill him. And the friend of the court failed to even care that that report existed when this mother left him there in 2001. So what is our federal dollars really doing for us? It's destroying us. It's a greedy tree that's destroying us. If you go back before federal funding existed, before you had friend of the court offices, you go back, and it may seem like a myth, but to Little House on the Prairie days, which may be a fairy tale, but in my great-grandfather's days, husbands and wives worked it out one way or the other. Obviously, you had certain ones that didn't, but without the intervention of the courts, there was more families resolved and saved and reconciled than there is now with the court's intervention.
So, Mr. Richardson, has this affected your current family, or did they just blow it off and everything's going fine? Financially
and emotionally, this has had major effects on my family. The emotions that this has done to me, I don't know how I've gotten through it for the last 16 years. I was in the car business for 20 years, and when I found out about the felony charge against the biological father and that I was actually ordered to pay him, and my son was born, all this coupled together really brought a lot of emotions with me to the surface. still today emotionally, it's deprived my wife and my son of my full capabilities of being a father and a husband. Financially, my child goes without a lot of things. We give him everything we can, and he's not living in poverty, but for what he was deserving to was stolen from him as well. It wasn't just taken from me, it was taken from my wife and my child now.
Your current wife, your current child.
My current wife. I actually quit my job over this because I couldn't take the fact as I was being extorted for money no more. If they're going to take my money that they're not deserving to, and I'm going to go without, we're all going to go without, because I'm not going to give everything I work for to somebody that does not deserve it, which it is actually the state of Michigan that's taken my money.
Should Elizabeth be charged with felony fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud and go to jail?
Elizabeth Rosaticki, Judge Schmidt, and Dennis Bergevin should all be criminally charged. And I am working with the Department of Justice. There was a complaint filed 8 months ago, and they did just recently get a hold of me. They're waiting for a little bit more documentation. I have faith that the person that I'm working with there.
And no private attorney will step up to the plate and help you, and yet they claim that that's what they're here for. When people have been abused, you should get an attorney, but no private attorney has stepped up to the plate, have they?
Well, the situation like I fell into, trying to get a private attorney to take the case, they're afraid of it because they don't want to put their family in jeopardy, because it literally can ruin their career. And unfortunately, the only way you can get an attorney in this situation that I'm in is have a lot of funds to where you can afford to pay an attorney $100,000 or $200,000. Nobody has that kind of money when they've been put in a situation I am. I had my payroll clerk from 2000 to 2003 run a scan on actually printed my payroll in 72 checks that she ran where I received zero. The state took it all. 72 checks, I got zero because it all went to the friend of the court.
Should the friend of the court be severely cut back? Should that office be abolished?
The friend of the court, there's only 2 states that I know of that have an operation of the friend of the court, which is really the enemy of the family. They should be abolished. I mean, you've got an agency here that literally works for the circuit court. All their decisions are, the friend of the court in Michigan, they've got some, their duties are collection, parenting time enforcement, and recommendations to the judges on divorces. And what's happened is they're making these recommendations to a judge prior to a couple going into the courts, and it's predetermined before you even go into the courtroom of what's going to happen. Judges are making decisions based off recommendations of the friend of the court, not off legal fact.
So, Mr. Richardson, you filed a grievance. The Inspector General, Andrew, investigated. Then the governor did what? And what came out of all that?
I actually went to the governor after running into brick walls with a friend of the court here, looking for some guidance because of the problems that I was having here. The Governor Granholm wrote me a letter back stating she has no jurisdiction over the judicial branch of the government, but she suggested that I file a grievance against the friend of the court.